And so if I have one message to our president, it's lay off the ridiculous rhetoric about Canada being the 51st state. As an American, I'm ashamed.
Great comments from Jesse Marsch. Wednesday, we're a day late, but that happens with Footy Prime sometimes. You all played for Canada. You've all played with pride and honor for Canada. What does this mean for you, Craig, when Jesse Marsch, who's been hitting home runs basically as Canada's head coach since it began, what does it mean for you that he's taking such a stand and so publicly?
Yeah, well, there's a lot to unpack there, really. I mean, first of all, I was always wondering how Jesse Marsch was going to handle the situation, because obviously we have an American coach and he can't shy away from that. But how is he going to deal with it? Well, how he dealt with it, I thought, was brilliant, excellent. I thought that it was, he nailed all the talking points, as well as I think it is going to be a massive inspiration for our team, which is going to be brilliant for Jesse as well. So my thoughts on it overall is that he handled it absolutely brilliantly. He nailed it. And just a few Canadians could probably go a long way to saying something as strong as that as well.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there, Forrest. Like, much was made of the fact that he was an outsider before he was appointed, that it was an American who was going to lead a Canadian team. So I think his words resonate even more strongly and more powerfully and more uniquely because he's an American at the helm of a Canadian squad. And it might be argued, say, if you compare his comments to a guy like John Cooper, who coaches the Tampa Bay Lightning, very successful there for an American NHL franchise, was coaching Canada in the Four Nations for hockey. I felt like he had to say stuff. He presented himself very well, spoke really well, I think, and represented everybody, represented Canadians. I was proud of what he had to say, but he was still towing a line. I feel like Jesse Marsch can almost go in a lot harder. Yes, he's been hitting home runs, but I think he has very little to lose here. I think, yes, he still had to put himself out there. He still might receive death threats for what he's saying from other Americans who disagree with him. We know that it's so polarizing out there, this type of rhetoric, but just the political climate right now. But in terms of leading his players, leading Canadians into a massive tournament, into the semifinals of Nations League next month on March 20th against Mexico, a really historic, competitive CONCACAF opponent, there's very little for him to lose here. And I think the support that he then got from Alistair Johnston as a player speaking up, and I think in a culture of sport where a lot of the time it's stay in your lane. Politics don't have any part in sport. I found it really refreshing, and I found it powerful for a sports figure to denounce that type of discourse.
I think when I look at Jesse Marsch, I love his passion and his honesty, and he doesn't shy away from questions. And if he believes in something, he'll say it. And being a Canadian that's played on this national team, both of you have represented Canada and played in the national teams, there's nothing more that you'd love to see is a manager that's going to back you, who's bought into our culture, who loves this country, believes in the people, loves the way of life that we have here in Canada, and supports it as being a foreigner. And I'm looking at it thinking, I would love to play for this guy. I would love to play for him. I like his tactics. I like the way he speaks. I like the way that he handles himself and the belief that he has in the players and in this country. And for me, I think it's brilliant to see. And I love the way that he spoke there.
Yeah, because even if you don't subscribe to his politics, he's representing and he's going to bat for his players, but also by default, all Canadians. Because it doesn't even matter what you feel about Trump, but what Trump is pushing, which is he refers to our prime minister as Governor Trudeau, like referring to wants to annex our country. Like that, I think as a Canadian, everybody, no matter your political affiliations, you should feel threatened by that. That's just like, it's belittling, it's arrogant, it's the height of condescension. So to see somebody stand up and be unafraid to say this is not okay, of course you want to fucking play for that guy. And as a Canadian, why would I not want to support this team and that guy by default?
Mm-hmm. And I was
lines up
it
really
was
well.
probably
Very critical.
quite critical about, when I was outspoken about not having a foreigner or even American being part of our national program. Well, I've completely turned the corner on that, and I've been so impressed with Jesse Marsch and the way he's handled things on and off the field that I am 100% all in on Jesse Marsch.
And I was listening to the broadcast yesterday. Dubs, well done.
Thank you, Wonger.
I love that you got the broads together. But you guys were talking about the outside look in and how it's actually been a benefit to bring in people from the outside to kind of clean house a little bit. Talk to me about that. How does that kind of work a little with a manager from outside of the Canadian environment, soccer environment?
It's somebody from outside the fold, a fresh voice or blowing in new ideas that I think will be maybe seen as innovative, seen a little bit differently, but free of the baggage that like the three of us who played for our country, represented our country proudly. But it also comes with a lot of caveats where you're always going to be proud, but it's also doing things in spite of something for the longest time, whether it was funding, whether it was inept leadership, all kinds of things, right? And in terms of the federation. So I think to bring in two people, two candidates with pedigree from the men's game and the women's game who don't have a history, who don't have a track record. They're aware, they're cognizant to what they're walking into, but they don't have the weight of the past. And I think I saw one comment because Claire disagreed with Rian, because Rian said, to give people context who didn't listen to it, she said whether it was myself or whether it was Carmelina Moscato or somebody who would come up through the program, and in my words, I said that at that point, you then run the risk of being scapegoated or like lumped into blame or things that have happened in the past, and you're just kind of looped in there. Whereas somebody who's coming in who doesn't have that history almost has a leg up on you. And Claire disagreed. She said, I think people would have loved to have seen two players like you who have forged their own path, found success outside the country, outside the borders of this country, plying their trade kind of after you're sort of exiled out of the country and then coming back. It would have been seen as this great celebration and this coming home. But it also brings the negative, like the counterpoint to that is that all of what you've done could then be turned around and used against you. And maybe that's a cynical look. But I think the two of them, from my perspective as somebody who's close with them both, really close with Rian, she's one of my best friends, I almost felt like protective of her, that she needs to have success elsewhere for a little while now. And maybe the next appointment might be a Rian Wilkinson or a Carmelina Moscato. But to bring it back for what's happening right now in a Jesse Marsch and a Casey Stoney, two outsiders, I think, in the best way possible, who will be welcomed in, supported, held properly, supported properly. But this voice from the outside is, I think, going to be of benefit to both programs.
There's something about the timing of this all. The question was asked at the beginning of that, or during that press conference, about the Nations League. So I'm not exactly sure who the reporter was, but there is something about the timing of this that lines up very well too, if Canada and the US make the final, which I would argue is kind of fun and kind of gets Soccer Canada, for maybe one of the first times in a non-World Cup, non-qualifying match, it puts them in the forefront, which hopefully we can all gather around and benefit and push and build up into a really great experience. We know we have friends from the Voyageurs going down already. We know that. Sharms is going to be covering that. Does soccer benefit from this little turmoil that's going on over the borders? I think it does.
Concacaf certainly does.
Yes.
It puts bums in seats. There's no question about that.
And seats. Yeah.
Yeah. But we played against the the Americans, since the youth national programs all the way up to the senior team. And those matches, when you play them, the passion is ridiculous. It's the energy, just the sense of pride that both teams have. And they're always great matches. But with this little bit of fuel that's on top of it, if Canada and the States meet in the finals, it's even going to be more electric. And what a match that could turn out to be. Just the passion on both sides.
Well, you think about the Four Nations and the amount of people that were paying attention to it that are not hockey fans and maybe will never be hockey fans, but were rooting for one side or the other because of what they felt was at stake. So this could just be continuing in that same vein. If you get that final, if Canada's able to get through Mexico and the US are able to trump or beat Panama, then you might get a final.
Well, we've also got one of the, I'm not sure what I would call him, but he's a pundit, and he's an American pundit. And I have to say, many times he takes, his takes, I would argue, are really atrocious. So here's Alexi Lalas saying, Jesse Marsch is smart, articulate, and confident. I disagree with the depiction of America, but I love that he's leaned into his role. Oh, wait. Into the heel role as the American coaching Canada. This stokes the rivalry and is music to Canadian ears and his employer, which is the point. Well played. So once again, Alexi, cynical, wrong take, because it doesn't talk about the reality of us feeling threatened. And just so if any of our American friends are listening, who want to support us and support, we're not mad at you. The administration is making us feel very uncomfortable. And it's unfair. This is like your best friend, not only, going against your back, it's also then them gaslighting. And you're the king gaslighter, Alexi. Just so you know, Wonger says that. So if you want to get back, we can start a Twitter fight, but it's a ridiculous take. So it's so cynical and so wrong. And yes, it might work to build in the Concacaf rivalries, but that's not why Jesse Marsch is doing it. And if you think it is, then you're looking at the world in a very, very dark way. How about that, Alexi?
He knows exactly what he's doing, though, right? Always stoking the fire, looking for that hot take deliberately. But yeah, he's not wrong though about, what he says at the end.
No, that's right.
Yes, yeah. That's completely right.
Mm-hmm.
But playing the heel role,
yeah,
I mean, that's just kind of sticking the knife in and like twisting a little bit.
Well, how is he playing the heel? That means he's the wrong person. He's taking the wrong side. That's what's so stupid about that comment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the depiction of what the Americans are, he says he didn't agree with. It's like, well, that's half the problem with the Americans that we have a problem with, is that they don't get it. Can't read the fucking room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
look, Wallace isn't stupid. You know what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy, it was funny. I don't know if you watched the whole thing, but Oguchi Onyewu right after was asked, what do you think of Jesse's comments? And if people want to roll to, we don't have to do it now, but if it's at 44:52, if you want to hit the USA answer from the CONCACAF website, it was really, really obvious that he didn't want to talk about anything. He basically just said, we're here to play a football match and we're looking forward to it. And I try and keep all that off the pitch. So he's got to play defense. I wish I understood Spanish because Aguirre had some nice things to say. And what was really kind of neat, sorry, I'm using the word neat again. But at the end, I don't know if you noticed, at the end of Jesse Marsch's response, Aguirre touched him on the leg and said, nice answer. It was quite poignant. And people, if you don't, once again, the end of that, if you want to go to that part, it is at 44:39 and you'll see that. So watch us, watch that Concacaf. It's 50 minutes, but it's a very, very interesting 50 minutes. So please feel free. Any other comments on your reactions to this? Oh, this is Footy Prime, by the way, just so everyone knows. Footy Prime.
Almost 20 minutes in.
That's right.
Prime. I just wanted to say, after Aguirre not immediately following Marsch's response, but later on he was a bit dissatisfied with one of his answers, and he left the stage, and he was in a suit, and he changed into a tracksuit, and he came back and he saw the rest of the press conference out, feeling like he'd have a fresh look with a different fit. I'm just kidding. He didn't do that. But remember, he did that when he was playing when he was playing Canada. He was in a suit for the first half. It wasn't going so well, and then he disappeared into the dressing room and came back, and then he was a tracksuit coach. Remember?
I do. I also remember. Didn't he get pumpkined in the head with a can?
He sure
against
did.
What was it, Honduras, or I forget.
Yeah,
but
he got smoked and then cut quite badly.
Yeah. He's been through a lot lately. I know this has taken the focus on it, but other great things that happened last night. Hey, the Vancouver Whitecaps came back to qualify in the CONCACAF Champions Cup to the next round. And I think they're playing Monterey. Is that it?
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Did anyone watch any of that? Because I know I did last week, and I watched the highlights this morning, and I'm telling you, Jaden Nelson, that guy could be player of the year, comeback player of the year right now. He is his service, Jimmy. Watch the highlights. It's worth watching. He's been spectacular.
No, he's a great player. He really is. And he seems to be thriving in Vancouver at the moment, just the way that he's playing. You can see his ability coming out. And he's enjoying his football at the moment. Now, it's still early, though, Wonger as well. So we'll see over the next couple of months if he continues this trend. But it's good to see where he is right now as a footballer.
Yeah, with all this going on behind the scenes about the sale of Vancouver, I was wondering what this team was going to look like, how it was going to be affected. But the managers have done a really good job so far and keeping them focused on what they're doing. They've got off to a great start in MLS, and they're doing well in the Champions Cup as well. So good on them. Good start.
Well, Kamal Miller's red card in Portland certainly helped them get that crushing 4-1 win last week. So
yeah, it did. But in the playoffs,
maybe the referees are in on the sale. You know how we're always talking conspiracy.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe Trump wants our football team now because we finally got a good one. He wants to put all of us together in one basket and win the World Cup.
But given like what you're saying about the uncertainty with the club up for sale, is Axel Schuster was talking about season ticket sales being up. Like they've improved on like year-on-year improvement for season tickets. So that bodes really well. And also the way that the team's been playing, as Jimmy is saying, it's small sample size with Jaden Nelson in early days yet for the Whitecaps under Jesper Sorensen, but looking like they've embraced that fully, and a team that really had success on the counter. I think that White goal on Nelson's setup, great header. I think 11 passes is part of the buildup. So definitely going a different direction, but so far so good.
Also, you got to give credit to St. Ricketts as well in helping design their jerseys. I thought they were very, very cool.
Ooh, I like those jerseys. Yeah. They were
Black History Month, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it just because of that? Because they could keep those all the time. Those are spectacular kits.
That's what it was for, and he played a significant role in designing it.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize this, but we do have an American who wanted to make some comments on this show. So here is one of Trump's friends, Mike Tyson.
Hi, Footy Primers. Listen, okay, I understand that you are all from Canada. I've been to Canada. I haven't been recently because I had an issue with one of your news pundits who brought up some inappropriate comments. So I was going to take his face off and wear it as a glove. Listen, I have a feeling that Jesse Marsch is afraid that perhaps his job will be obsolete once Canada becomes the most beloved and cherished 51st state. So in that case, I can see why he might have his pantyhose all up in a knot, tied in a half Windsor knot like a tie, for sure. But listen, that would be like having Utah or Idaho have its own national team. That doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So listen, I would say, Mr. Marsh, what are you, somewhere where storks and fish and amphibians live? In the marsh? Maybe you should embrace. You need to embrace the fact that you will be joining, as you could have a wonderful role, perhaps as the Kit Man on Team America.
Thanks, Mike.
We'll be
Thanks,
playing
Mike.
a lot of episodes. We'll be playing games in Gaza. Whoops, crossed the line. Mike out.
Thanks, Mike, for those intriguing comments. Anyways, I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Reach out to us, comment, like, subscribe. Please subscribe. We're on our way to 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I think you might like us sometimes. Other times I get it, but make some comments. We always like the comments.